Hey Rockstars, I'm JB, expert salesperson and master presenter.
I'm the doctor, psychologist, and behavioral expert.
This is the Entrepreneur Mastery Lab podcast.
We're high-performance coaches that help service-based professionals and entrepreneurs take their skills to the next level.
70% of entrepreneurs fail, which is why every week we have real talk with real entrepreneurs to help ensure you are not one of them.
We're also the inventors of the Be Rich mindset,
where we rise to mastery,
inspire greatness,
celebrate knowledge,
and help others along the way.
So join us in the lab.
And now, on to the show.
Welcome back to the lab. I'm JB.
I'm the doctor.
For all of you joining us for the first time, thank you so much for listening in. We are going to have a really exciting episode here, so pumped for you to join us. And if you've come back again, you must be some sort of glutton for punishment, but we appreciate you. Thank you for joining us, listening in. We absolutely love it. If you're not following or subscribed already, go ahead, take a listen, follow, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating. We appreciate it. We're eternally grateful for it and your support, and really, really pumped you joined us again.
Excited as heck that you're a glutton for punishment.
Absolutely. And if you hadn't noticed, we also have the Entrepreneur Mastery Lab private Facebook group. So come check that out as well. You get to meet awesome people like the doc and I, and occasionally our fantastic guests as well. So it's a good thing to check out if you're on the Facebook.
And we even named it the same, so you can always remember.
Yeah, it's hard to screw it up when it's the same exact name. So Doc, tell me about your week, man. What'd you get done?
This has been a fun week. So I went to the chiropractor and got adjusted.
Can you stand up?
A little bit. Yeah. So it was fun because I've also started Orange Theory the last few weeks. So
Nice.
there's been some glutton for punishment myself. And so I figured getting adjusted after that was probably a good idea. I'm not sure yet. I'll let you know. To be continued.
All right. Have you ever read the history of chiropractic? I don't know what you're supposed to call it. The history of chiropractic work. Have you read that history before?
I have not been that bored yet. Nope.
It is a really interesting story. It's not a great story. There's some father-son drama. There's I think somebody gets run over by a car. It's really interesting. But a chiropractor can make a huge difference. If you're hurting, my gosh, they can really help.
We are proceeding with caution, so we'll see how that goes.
And how's Orange Theory treating you? Are you still able to walk from that? I mean, that probably hurts you more than a chiropractor.
Well, that's been fun. One of the first classes we went to, it turned out to be Legs Day. And
everybody's favorite.
We were going back the next day, which we were planning on going like every other day was the plan. But we had, with our schedule, we had to go back-to-back days. And they're like, oh, don't worry. They never do leg days twice. And the next day was pretty much all the same things intensified. So getting out of bed the day after was fun. But hey, I'm a glutton.
You know, my fitness program says embrace the suck. So go for it. Orange Theory is a great one. I don't know if any of our listeners are into that or have checked it out before, but I've seen some pretty incredible transformations from Orange Theory. So that stuff works.
All I know is I'm just going to keep saying the name until they sponsor us.
You know what? We've got a mid-roll opportunity here at any time. I think, right? We've gotten filled up with sponsors lately, though.
Yeah, you'll probably hear a few today as you guys are listening. But Orange Theory. Feel free to, if it's Orange Theory, like Candyman, where you say it a few times, they show up in the mirror.
We're waiting for you, Orange Theory. We're just going to bill you. I mean, we've said the name enough. We're just sending a bill out. You know, you're welcome.
Exactly. So if you listen to this podcast in a few weeks and all you hear is beeps in the place where we're saying the name, then you know why.
Yeah, that's great. Well, that's cool, man. Well, let's introduce our guest here because I'm really pumped. We've got somebody joining us today that's just an absolutely fantastic person and human being. We have Suzanne Taylor-King of Tailored Coaching. Suzanne, thanks for joining us in the lab.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, we always have fun. I don't know if you'll have fun, but we always have fun.
Oh, I'll have fun. I'll make it fun.
That's why we wanted to have you. We knew you were gonna have a lot of fun no matter what. So we're pretty pumped to have you. Do us a favor, share with us so our listeners know a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Well, it's a long and sordid tale, but I'll give you the abridged version. I started out after college as a dental hygienist and found this immense need in my patient population for wellness advice. And I had always been into health and fitness and exercise. I was a, athlete in college, professional snowboarder after college. And so I had this love of exercise and movement and healthy eating. And I was constantly sharing advice with my patients. And flash forward 20 years, I decided that that's what I wanted to do for a living. I wanted to help people live a better life, get healthier, be more active. And that has translated over the last 15 years into being a mental performance coach and life coach for entrepreneurs. So that's the shortened version.
Mental performance coach. I like that.
Mm-hmm.
I do like that. And I find it really interesting, right? And it goes to show, because you went from snowboarding, professional snowboarding, to dental hygienist, to mental performance coach. I mean, those are, on the surface, superficially, really divergent paths. So you really, you made some big changes over the years in your life.
I think, but at the core of who I am as a person is resilience and bouncing back better than I was before. And I have this immense love of learning. So even when I was a dental hygienist, I was working on my own personal development, whether it was yoga or meditation or, just learning new nutrition things to hack my fitness hobby. And sometime in my early 20s, I took a couple years off and just decided to live the laptop lifestyle and snowboard. But there was no laptops then. So the laptop lifestyle was bartending at different ski resorts to fund my snowboarding love. And one thing led to another. And I ended up getting a couple sponsors for that, which made me have to work less. And then a couple injuries happened. And I said, I'm really too old. I would think I was 25 or 26 at that point. And most of the up and coming people were 16, 17. And I was starting to develop a little fear of getting hurt again. And I was like, this is the point when I need to decide, on this isn't going to be my career. I need to go back to a job and have this be a hobby. So that was another big transition, letting go of daily activity like that and transitioning back into a dental office.
Your story, you talked about bouncing back early in that story, and it reminds me of my first couple experiences snowboarding, because I was a skier. I started skiing when I was young, and I didn't try to attempt snowboarding until I was in college. And I went to college in the Northeast. So for any of our border skiers out there, when you say the Northeast, it's probably icy most of the time. It is. And I bounced quite a few times, my butt off the ground, and I have never had that sore of an ass in my life. And I never wanted it again. So I could never get into snowboarding, just because every time I tried to, I was just like, man, this is brutal on your body. So I totally get that, because not even getting seriously injured, I said, I think I have enough. And I could appreciate that. It's an amazing thing when you're in a business or an industry where at 24, 25, 26, you're aging out, right?
Yeah.
And athletics, that does happen quite a bit. We see that all the time in pro football as well. So, we know somebody in common who says life is a lot like a 2-minute boxing round, right? When that 2 minutes ends, it's okay. That's fine. You just move on to something else. So your journey took you from professional snowboarding, where you had some opportunities, but it just wasn't going to be a lifelong profession, into the dental hygienist work. And now today you're doing the mental performance coaching. And can you just, you mentioned you work with entrepreneurs. Are there specific types of entrepreneurs you like to work with? And if so, just who do you prefer to work with?
Well, I love pulling in my 20-year career in dentistry and work with doctors and dentists and, practice owners. I like to say anybody who calls their business a practice. Because I've been a coach for almost 13 years, coaches are attracted to me. Coaches that are struggling or just learning to build up that confidence, to build up that, oh, how do I get clients? How do I attract people to me? How do I present myself? How do I get up on stage and have the confidence that you do? I want what you have. Can you teach me? And I went with that. I mean, it's an amazing thing to mentor somebody who does the same thing as you and they admire you. It's super rewarding to do that.
Yeah, that coach's coach style business model, I mean, there's a lot of room there because you get a lot of people entering into the coaching business that really maybe don't have a background in coaching. And it's just like any entrepreneur. You might be really great at something technical. You might have built something. You might have written some software, but it doesn't mean that you have all the other intangibles that you probably need to have success in what you're doing. And we see that in coaching all the time. You see people come in that might be fantastic at what they do. And we've had this conversation with people as well, where, hey, this is who we are. This is what we love to do. And this is what we're opening up. And we don't know how to sell. I was like, oh, well, that's going to be a problem if you don't know how to sell. You've got a challenge there because you could have the best tool, product, service in the world that you don't know how to sell. I think we can all agree without sales, you can't really run a business. So it's really pretty important. So, it's very interesting to me that business, and it's super cool that you're able to take advantage of it. I got to imagine, based off your experience, 15 years of working in this, mental performance coaching, the prior experience as a dental hygienist, as well as in the snowboarding world, what's the biggest challenge you see people have as entrepreneurs? What do you really kind of diagnose as, man, this is where more than ever people are struggling?
Their negative thought pattern, 100%. And hence the move from focusing on nutrition and wellness and fitness coaching into the mental aspect, because 95% of what I was doing when I worked at a gym, working with clients on their bodies, when I worked with somebody on their nutrition, 95% of what I was doing was right up here. It had nothing to do with anything else. And I leaned into that. I was like, there has to be something here. And that I guess I was just open to what my work was showing me about what to learn next. And I started studying positive psychology for the mindset piece. I have great willpower, like ironclad willpower. I can teach that to somebody else, but I needed the skills and the tools and the words to use to be able to teach it to somebody who didn't understand what I understood. So that's where positive psychology came in. And that's really, I think it was about me embracing that everything I was doing was in people's heads and the way they were thinking about themselves and what they wanted to create.
And you even, I mean, you alluded to kind of this piece of it when you talked about transitioning from snowboarding. Your fear of getting injured really was a turning point for you. And that's all in your head, right? Are you going to get injured? Well, you don't know if you're going to get injured necessarily, but if you're afraid of it, that's all internal. Doc, in your mind, are you, this negative self-talk that STK mentioned there, how often do you see it when you're working with people, and what advice do you have for people out there they're struggling with it?
Negative self-talk is one of the things we face most in sessions is just that the negative belief of self, the ego strength. A lot of those things are just, I don't want to say damaged, but they've definitely taken a hit over the years. For a lot of people, it could be in childhood, it could be in relationships, it could just be in their own mind. So just trying to get that limited beliefs and those ways that people talk to each other with that, to just kind of reframe it into, as I heard Suzanne say, some of that positive talk, the positive psychology behind that. There is the caution, obviously. We don't want to be fake positive. We wanted to make sure that as we're looking for those positives, that they're accurate, because there is toxic positivity also. And I think that's like most things, going to extremes, right? You don't want to go to an extreme either way. So finding that balance of when you can find positives, we just don't look at them. Our brain is mostly built for negatives. It's kept us alive. That's part of our fight or flight. That is the midbrain. That's what it's there for, is to keep us alive. So it tends to go negative more so than positive. So you have to work a little harder to find positives. And it's just, you want to make sure you're looking for accurate positives and not just trying to fake yourself. You can fake it till you make it a little bit, but don't overdo it.
Well, it's not about, being happy all the time. When somebody says, oh, I want to be more positive, it's not about being happy all the time and joyful all the time. It's really about that resilience and grit and being able to have something bad, traumatic, a setback, and being able to move forward, to be able to look towards the future and be prospective instead of turning around and looking behind you and saying, I wish that could be better. I wish that was different. Well, it isn't. How can we look forward? And that's really the core of positive psychology, is teaching somebody how to be prospective about the future and not always thinking about the past.
I love what you both had to say there. Just in general, the doc knows this. I'm huge into creating perspective, but there is a very valid concern, I think, out there. A lot of people comparing themselves to other people instead of maybe comparing themselves to the progress that they've made in their own life. Yeah. And you're constantly going to fall short if you're comparing yourself to David Goggins and try to do what David Goggins does and is. You're probably not David Goggins, right? So maybe just take a look at where you're coming from and where you've moved from and what your journey has been. And it's a great way to maybe offset some of that, because I think we all deal with that, right? I mean, this is just something that everybody naturally has.
I think so. I think comparisonitis is a real thing. Whether it's jealousy, like, oh, I want that. How do you reframe that into, oh, that's amazing that person achieved that. I would like something like that for myself. How do I do that? And I think that's just a growth mindset thing, to pull people out of comparisonitis and get you into, well, what are your actual goals and how are you going to get there? That can take a lot of sessions.
Well, then the idea is that comparison is, you're picking one thing to compare, right? You're not comparing your whole life to that. So like, I don't know David Goggins personally. I don't know what he goes through every day. I know what he puts on Instagram and out to the world, but who knows what struggles he's going through every day. Are you going to compare those pieces also? No. So you're just picking and choosing some parts to compare. And that's unrealistic, to try to compare your whole life to bits and pieces of somebody else's public life.
Well, I think that's one of the problems with social media and it affecting people's well-being, because you're only seeing the best. I mean, if you follow me on social media, you don't see the COVID weight that I've gained because I've been sitting, growing my business. You don't see when I have a fight with my husband. You don't see when, I lost both of my parents and didn't get out of bed for 3 weeks. Like, you don't share that stuff on social media. You only share the highlight reel. So I think that's what makes it so difficult.
Yeah, if you look pretty hard, you might find a video or two of me swearing at Facebook for technical issues, but for the most part, you only get the good stuff on social media. I want to keep talking about this subject, but I do want to take a break for our sponsors for a moment, and we'll be back in just a minute.
Hey y'all, it's the doctor from JB and the Doctor. Just wanted to talk quickly about our 2-on-1 coaching service that we offer, as well as our group coaching program that's also available. As high-performance coaches for service-based professionals and entrepreneurs, we are hyper-focused on improving your presentation and positioning, powering up your productivity, and supercharging your sales. As we all know, people, we're just different, and one size does not fit all. So it's important to work with those that understand this and can tailor their program and training specific to your needs. And that is exactly what we do here at JB and the Doctor. With our Mastery with Science system and approach, we provide both the how and the why, proven by experience and backed by science. So to take advantage of this truly unique approach with the expertise of 2 coaches providing you with the very best of self and business coaching, just check out our website at jbandthedoctor.com/services for more information or to schedule an exploratory phone call. That's jbandthedoctor.com/services.
All right. So this comparisonitis that you were talking about, STK, and really just the negative self-talk, the number one challenge you see people have as entrepreneurs. So you obviously put a focus on how do I work positive psychology into this business model to help people. What's the change you've seen when you've helped apply that to the coaches and the entrepreneurs that you're working with? Is it pretty dramatic?
It is pretty dramatic. And I love my own story of when I did it for myself, because I think any coach, if you're going to coach on something or around the subject matter, you're your own best experiment. You need to be a living, breathing, walking example of the transformation that you're offering your client. So let's just say that first. But everyone I've worked with has noticed that they have more time. They procrastinate less on the tasks that feel hard. They self-sabotage less, whether it's sugar or lack of exercise, lack of sleep. And when you combine all that together, more productive, procrastinate less, avoid less, self-sabotage less, what happens? Your business becomes more successful. Your sales are more successful. Your just overall energy level is brighter, more vibrant, and that attracts people to you. So I think it's kind of threefold. You get more productive and you become a higher energy person.
Is there a catch-22? You think about who this is going to most help. And we think about, well, so everybody's dealing with this, but some people probably dealing with it more than others. The ones that really need this type of thing are the ones that are most likely to self-sabotage, aren't they? So how do you even get people to take that first step? What's kind of in your mind the way to do that?
I think it's the awareness. The awareness that you're actually self-sabotaging, that's the first step. And if I have a client who doesn't see that, the sole mission of our time together becomes awareness of patterns of, oh, I see I set goals for myself and I'm not achieving that. I'm not, especially if it's sales, like you guys deal with salespeople all the time. If somebody's not picking up the phone to make the calls they have to make, you're not going to reach your goals. So if you're sabotaging just picking up the phone, but you don't know you're doing it, we have to bring light to the awareness factor first.
It's a nice thing about not being on an island and having, if you're a solo practitioner, an entrepreneur, whether it's a board or a mastermind, if you are just a professional who's working within the structure of management, it's nice to be able to have somebody look at you maybe a little bit objectively from the outside looking in, because you do run across that in sales. It's totally common. There are days where I need to make a phone call and I know I need to make a phone call and I'll make that phone call. But if my head's not right, I already know the phone call is not going to go great. That is self-sabotage in a nutshell. In my mind, I am creating that right up front. And there's something to be said about putting yourself in a positive space. As salespeople in general, and I would argue that everybody's a salesperson. That's just one of my core beliefs. We all have to sell. I don't care what your role is. At least 30, 40, 50% of your time is likely in sales because we're always communicating with people and selling. We are going to fall into instances where we are dealing with more negative self-talk than positive self-talk, pretty commonly, right? It doesn't take much. You lose a big win, you falter, you fumble, you screw something up. And we're not perfect. We're not robots. It will happen. It will happen. Mm-hmm. So how do you kind of overcome that? And I think having the objective eyes, having the board members provide awareness is always really fantastic. Also, in my mind, probably one of the best things people can do, which I really believe it is, start to find some small wins, some really, really small wins to build yourself back up, because life doesn't stop. Business doesn't stop. We got to keep moving. And the longer you stick yourself into a rut, which is oftentimes self-created in the first place, man, it's harder and harder to get out of it. So those small little victories make a big difference. One of the best lessons I've learned in my time working for a Fortune 50 company in external sales, where you have to get out there day after day and you have to get it done. And you're done, mm-hmm. You're gone.
Yeah.
Get those small wins.
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the most powerful things a coach a long time ago had me do was have a journal of all my wins. And whether it was making a difference with somebody, whether it was an aha moment a client had, whether it was, selling something that cost $10,000, whether it was a parenting success, doesn't matter. When there's something big that felt really good, write it down with the date so that you remember, so that you can go back to that. And, celebration's pretty powerful effect on your brain. It releases dopamine, which is awesome, right? If we release dopamine before a sales conversation, then I'm much more likely to present in a way that feels natural, feels authentic to the other person, because I'm in a positive vibration before I get on the phone with them. And it sounds a little, woo-woo, but it's really not. If you just get yourself in the headspace of, I've done this, I'm successful in here, and it's not blowing smoke up your butt, right? It's actual tangible successes from your journal. I remember when my intuition was right. I remember when I read this person right. And just get in that state of being, you're 100 times more successful selling.
So everything she just said there is also science. And as we like to talk about science a little bit here, when you're changing any kind of behavior, there's three things, and you guys have probably heard me talk about the 3 R's. You have to review what you're doing, you have to repeat what you're doing, and then you have to reward what you're doing. That reward is the reinforcement. And that's the piece that SDK was just talking about, right? Is that you're reviewing what you were talking about, you're getting your back into that mindset, then you're going to repeat what you're about to do on the phone, and then you're rewarding it, reinforcing it, that it's working. And that's what keeps that mindset going positive. And that's what keeps you being able to make those adjustments and move forward. And so, yeah, it is releasing that dopamine, but it's also reminding you that this is the strategy that you're trying to do. So it keeps you in that mindset to do it right.
Yes. Yeah.
And by the way, physics doesn't disagree with this either. Everybody's made up of particles and waves simultaneously, and they're constantly moving and vibrating. And the entire universe can be explained as a sympathetic response to the vibrations of everything around it, in a lot of ways. So, physics agrees with this too. It's not just psychology, and, we can call it woo woo if we want, right? And some people look at it that way, and that's cool. I'm not going to knock that. But I think there's some validity to everything that you're saying. And if we get ourselves in the right space, we are more likely to stay in that space, and we're more likely to attract things that resonate with the energy when we're in that space.
Yes, 100%. And I think, entrepreneurs especially, they struggle with confidence and comparisonitis, and they have to be on social media. They have to sell themselves. They have to talk about themselves a lot in a positive light and encourage people to spend money with them. So I think they struggle with these things more than, someone like my husband, who works a job, finishes his work, he's done for the day. He still gets his paycheck, whether he sold anything or not. I think it's different for different people. And I think that one of the things that attracted me to this work so much is that I was really, really good at sales when I was selling someone else's stuff. I I was a rock star selling my boss's work. I would talk about it, I would brag about it, and his dentistry was expensive, probably the most expensive one in town. And I hit my sales numbers without even thinking about sales numbers because I didn't believe in them in healthcare. And then when it came time to sell my own stuff, it did not go well in the beginning.
There's something in there, I imagine. And, in sales, especially, we get focused on metrics so much. And to me, it's not where the focus ought to be. Action leads to sales, and everybody in sales will tell you activity will solve all problems. And it surely probably will, for the most part, solve almost every problem out there. The more active you are, the more sales you'll have, no matter what you do. But sales always comes back to the why, the impact, the who. It's not about us as salespeople. And when we can remember that, and I think it's easier sometimes to remember that when you're in a role where you're not selling your own thing, right? Because when you're selling something you created, you're kind of tied to it. You're much more married to that than you are selling somebody else's thing. It's really important to flip that script on our heads a little bit and just, why am I doing this? Who am I helping and serving? And what kind of impact am I having in their lives? And the sales, when you can focus on that, the sales will typically take care of themselves if you're talking to the right people.
Well, that's exactly right. I mean, I think that because I was selling someone else's stuff and I wasn't focused on the numbers or the dollars, I was focused on the value and the needs of the patient. When I got out to my own business, well, it wasn't the same. It was totally different until I flipped that thinking and turned it into the same feeling for my own products and services.
Well, then again, that protection that we talked about, how our brain is trying to protect us. When it's someone else's, if it goes wrong, it's on them. Yeah. If it's our own and something goes wrong, then we have to take responsibility for it. So our brain is already putting us in a defense mode on why it makes sense and why it would be easier to sell other people's items until you can get past and drop some of that defense system that comes up naturally.
Absolutely. And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, absolutely. Finish it up.
I was just going to say that dropping that defense pattern is one of the hardest things to do in personal development. But once you do that, the world that opens up on the other side of that defense system is incredible.
Speaking of dropping things, we heard that there is something you would like to share with our audience that might drop some knowledge for them.
Yes, I have a couple things coming very shortly. I have a quiz to determine where you fall, your brain falls positive or negative. And I also have a new book coming out that's going to be available on my website, SuzanneTaylor-King.com. And it is a book all about how to become more optimistic as a leader so that you inspire those people that you work with or that you work and you lead. And I'm really excited for that to be on my website, available for free for about 4 months until my publisher kicks in.
I love that SDK.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Act fast.
Absolutely.
Click that button in the show notes.
Right. That will be in the show notes. Suzanne, thank you so much for joining us today. Really enjoyed the conversation.
Thank you.
Never know where it's coming, right? And going. Just really, there's a lot there. Love what you've done and where your career has brought you, and especially excited to continue to see the impact you're making in the world out there with the mental performance coaching. So Taylor Coaching And for all our listeners out there that are curious, yes, you can catch STK in the lab. She is in our private Facebook group. She's active. She's putting a lot of great content out there. So if you want to connect with STK, you have information in the show notes to get in touch with her or check out her giveaways and promotions, but she is also in the lab.
Thank you guys so much for having me. Really appreciate it.
Thanks so much for joining us.
When we have these conversations, Doc, and we're talking to all these professionals that join us on our show, it's always amazing to me how diverse of a background people have and how it influences where they are in their business today and what they do. And you look at STK in her conversation, she goes from, becoming a pro snowboarder to working in the dental hygienist role and working alongside a dental practice to transforming herself into a mindset performance coach. And it's just a really interesting career arc. And it goes to show, it doesn't necessarily matter where you start. You can have a great impact in people's lives and run a great business no matter where you are today. So if it's something that you're thinking about doing, it's like, wow, your background will have a positive influence and impact on the business that you choose to do if you go ahead and take that jump.
Not everybody's the same. People can do things differently. Not one size fits all. I wonder where I've heard that before.
I don't know. Tell me more.
No, but exactly right. And I think that's where people get caught up a lot of times on, like, when they create goals, they think so short term, which is great. You want to have some short term goals. You want to have some 1 year goals. But I challenge people to think 5-10 years out, but you don't have to be as realistic then, because you don't know what you're going to be, and it's okay to pivot. And I talk to a lot of young people constantly about, you don't need all the answers now because you have plenty of life ahead of you. You can change. Think about it. If you're in your 20s, you can change your mind every 10 years for the next 3 or 4 years and still only be in your 50s and still have plenty of time ahead of you to do all different things in your career.
When did Colonel Sanders open KFC?
It had to be a while because he was a colonel and it takes a while to get to that rank.
I think he was in his 50s or maybe 60 years old. Somebody out there, one of our listeners knows exactly what age, but it goes to show, just because you're older, doesn't mean you can't open a business, have a wildly successful business. The experiences that we draw upon are going to have a role in our business always. And it's recognizing that diversity of our experiences is what molds our businesses. And that it's that same reason why it's so nice to have a diverse group of people around you as a business owner. Even if you're a solopreneur, having a diverse group of backgrounds can really help identify, address, and minimize the impact of blind spots on your business. We're all susceptible to blind spots. None of us are objective on ourselves.
Absolutely. Learning from others is great because you don't see things the same way, and that's okay. And to get those perspectives is great. The other thing STK said that really stood out was just knowing, right? Like the first thing you have to do is just kind of know, having that blind spot to a lot of those things. And the reason that always sticks out to me, and some of you I'm sure will go with this, I watched G.I. Joe a lot growing up, and that was in the theme song, right? Knowing is half the battle. So
I quote that all the time. But my wife thinks I'm a freaking nut. I quote that shit all the time.
So if it's said in G.I. Joe, then we know it's valid. So knowing is half the battle. So go Joe.
You know what? I got nothing to follow up with that. That is the perfect ending to our conversation, man.
That you can't beat that.
So if you're looking forward to a diversity and different opinions and the ability to take a look at some of your blind spots, and you're not in the EML, the Entrepreneur Mastery Lab Facebook group or community, then you really ought to scoot right on over. The moment you get in front of a computer, join us, check it out. It will make a difference. We're here to impact your life positively. And we think the Facebook group is probably one of the best things that any entrepreneur out there or service-based professional can do to jumpstart some massive positive changes in their lives.
And if you want some more great contact by JB and the Doctor, you can find us all over the interwebs at the handle @JB and the Doctor, or you can find us at our website at jbandthedoctor.com, where you get great nuggets, like quoting GI Joe. So if you want more of that in your life, get into those places.
It's not going to get better than that.
All right, we are
all right, people. We'll sell you later, rock stars. Have yourself a great day.
Peace out, yo.